Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are diving into a really cool scientific paper about a futuristic idea, a smart fabric that's designed to be, well, a first line of defense in monitoring our health. This isn't just about fashion. It's about clothing that could, one day, actually save lives. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But just think about it for a second. What if your t-shirt, or maybe more importantly, your baby's pajamas, could give you a clear visual warning that a fever is starting? Well, thanks to some pretty incredible chemistry, this is way closer to being real than you might think. All right, so where does an idea like this even begin? Well, it starts with a problem we can all relate to, something that became a huge focus during the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we catch a fever early? A high temperature is, after all, often the body's very first warning sign that something's wrong. And this is especially, critically important for people who can't just say, hey, I feel sick. We're talking about infants, the elderly, or patients who have a hard time communicating. What we really need is a tool for early diagnosis that could also, say in a public health crisis, help stop an infection from spreading before it even gets started. So to make this work, the researchers needed a specific target. And after looking at tons of studies, especially from the COVID-19 epidemic, they zeroed in on one magic number, 37.5 degrees Celsius. That's 99.5 Fahrenheit, by the way. This isn't some random number. It's the critical point where your body is officially considered to have a fever. Okay, so you've got the problem, you've got the target temperature. How do you solve it? Forget about those bulky thermometers or complicated electronic gadgets. The big idea here was, what if the warning system was just built right into our clothes, acting as a constant, passive monitor? And this is the beautifully simple solution they came up with, a smart fabric that gives you a heads up visually. When you're healthy, at a normal body temperature, the fabric's green. But the second your body hits that 37.5 degree mark, boom, it turns white. It's simple, it's instant, you can't miss it. Okay, so let's get into the science of how they pulled this off. Color-changing fabric isn't a totally new concept. The real trick, the real genius here, was getting it to change at that one specific temperature that actually matters for a fever. It all comes down to a special ingredient called a thermochromic pigment. Basically, you've got these tiny little microcapsules with a special dye inside. When things heat up, the dye's whole chemical structure changes, and it just becomes see-through. It's the same tech in those coffee mugs that reveal a picture when you pour in hot coffee. But it's one thing to have this magic pigment, but how do you make it stick to the fabric so it doesn't just, wash out? Well, the researchers used a super clever process called the Sol-Gel method. You can kind of think of it like making a special high-tech gel. They mix the pigment into this gel, they coat the fabric with it, and as it dries, it creates this invisible mesh that locks those color-changing particles right onto the fibers for good. And right here, this is the absolute game changer. The pigment they started with, it changed color at 33 degrees Celsius, which is about normal skin temperature. But by tweaking the chemical recipe of that Sol-Gel coating, the scientists were able to retune it. They actually pushed that trigger point all the way up to exactly 37.5 degrees. That's the whole breakthrough right there. So an amazing invention like this is great in the lab. But for it to actually matter in the real world, it's got to be tough, right? It has to be practical. It needs to survive everyday life. And that brings us to the biggest question for any kind of smart clothing, doesn't it? What happens when you throw it in the wash? Is all that cool science just going to go right down the drain? Well, they really put it through the ringer. They took the coated alpaca fabric and tossed it into a full 90-minute wash cycle at 40 degrees Celsius, that's 104 Fahrenheit, with a bunch of detergent. They even tested some of it with bleach, just to be sure. So, what was the verdict? This quote from their paper pretty much says it all. That Sol-Gel coating worked like a charm. The fabric's ability to go from green to white at that exact fever temperature, it was perfectly intact even after a really tough wash. Okay, so the tech works, and it's durable, but what's the big picture here? Why does this matter? This isn't just about a neat party trick for fabric. This is a real peek into the future of healthcare you can wear. The possibilities here are just huge. Think about the peace of mind for parents, right? A onesie that's always on fever watch. Or imagine hospital gowns or bandages that give nurses a quick visual check on a patient's temperature without having to disturb them. It's a simple, low-cost way to keep a constant eye on the people who need it most. This whole breakthrough feels like it's just scratching the surface. It really gets you thinking. If our clothes can detect our temperature now, what's next? What other invisible health signs could they pick up on? Maybe heart rate, or hydration levels, or blood sugar? The future of what we wear is definitely looking a whole lot smarter.